Hey guys, welcome to OneGauge's first video series where we'll walk you through preparing, purchasing, and installing a totally custom digital gauge setup for your vehicle.
In part 2, we'll prepare for installation by removing the old instrument cluster and testing the OneGauge setup.
Today's the day for our installation of our OneGauge setup, our OneGauge digital dash into our Mazda Miata. So I'm going to walk you through the process, show you some of the things to think about, but really a digital dash installation is really easy when we provide you all the materials. So of course I'll start with removing the old instrument cluster. That's going to be specific to your vehicle. Every vehicle is going to be a little bit different, but you'll get a general idea of how the removal works and then some of the things to think about as you go about installing your OneGauge digital dash. Alright, so some of the things that you're going to want to do to prepare for your installation is disconnect your battery. You don't want any electrical power to anything. You don't want to shock yourself or cause a fire. And of course, you're going to want to have a fire extinguisher nearby just in case. So the first things that we're going to do are, the Miata is relatively simple. We basically just have to get this hood off, and that covers up all the screws and things that hold the cluster in. So to make it easier, after a little bit of research, I found that it's recommended to remove a couple of these plastic housings for the column. So I'm going to do that and then get busy on the cluster hood itself. There we go. Okay, so now it's just carefully removing the hood. Don't want to damage it because this is something that the previous owner put in. So I'd like to keep it in good shape, and then we'll pull out the cluster. Now we've got easy access to the cluster. Obviously I've got 4 screws holding mine in. Like I said, every vehicle is different, but really most cars tend to go together the same, so you're going to have a pretty similar disassembly process. There we go. So it was the speedometer that was holding it in. All right, so now we got our cluster out. We can swap this puppy out for the OneGauge cluster. All right, we've got our LRB speed instrument cluster here. So this is a cluster housing that they make to fit our screens. It's built for the Miata, and then it has the hole for the screen already CNC cut. Makes it really easy for you to add the screen. Of course, it's gonna fit right in to where the factory cluster went. Same mounting holes and everything. And then I think that looks great. Great fitment, of course. And I've added the carbon fiber wrap, honestly, because I kind of butchered the original metal. This was one of the prototypes that I worked with LRB on, and there were still a few changes that needed to be made, and so I covered up some of those blemishes with the carbon fiber wrap. But I really like the way it turned out. I think it has a pretty cool overall finish, but the standard look to it is a bare metal so that you could paint it or cover it or do whatever you like to it. So we've got everything laid out here for our cluster install. Basically, just looking over all my materials, make sure I've got everything ready. Got a few notes for installation, some wiring colors, and of course my screen and the housing and the main computer itself. When it arrives, typically it'll have this cover on the box. I've removed the cover so that I can add some wiring to these screw terminals. That'll be the factory coolant temp and oil pressure sensors, as well as RPM I'll need to wire into those screw terminals. So installation is going to be relatively easy. To install the screen into the housing, again, it's extremely simple. Basically, the housing just fits on top like this. We're going to use 4 screws, 1 on each corner, to secure the housing to the screen itself. All right, now we've got the cluster together, we can test it real quick. In this case, for this setup, I've used a rotary knob right here, so when I click it on, it gets power. And then I can also adjust the brightness, so as I turn it up, it actually adjusts the brightness down in reverse. So that way when I click it on, I get full brightness. And you can see right there, it goes from standard brightness to high brightness. So that way, this will be an easily sunlight readable display. Standard brightness is still relatively bright. If you've got a good hood over the gauge and the the display is recessed a little bit into your dash, it's usually fine, but for things like convertibles and boats, I tend to prefer the high brightness type setup. So this is basically ready to go. We're pretty much ready to install now, and we can test fit it and make sure that everything fits correctly. Quick test fit. Everything looks like it fits great. One of my favorite things is how easily visible the screen is from the driving position. Sometimes, with a small or a large wheel, you can get parts of the screen that are covered up, but in this case, it works really well. The glare on this actually isn't visible in person, it's just something that's coming from the camera. So of course we have all kinds of the different screen designs we can choose from, be able to toggle between these at any point and change really the driving experience and give you visibility to different gauges potentially than you would get otherwise. So pretty cool. I'm very excited with how this is going to turn out. I think it's going to be have a really good finished presentation and have a really clean look.
That's all for this video. In the next video, we'll give you a rundown of installation as well as a demo of the completed dash. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us directly at info@theonegauge.com or visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/OneGauge. You can also view our products at theonegauge.com. Thanks for watching.